Hello everybody, it's Helen from Journaling Planet, and today I'm going to take you through a few of the things that I look for when I'm gathering magazines to do junk journaling. These are reclaimed materials because they've been used once and then I'm using them for something else. They've been used for their original purpose and they're not going to be used anymore. But these aren't ones that I found, cheaply secondhand. These are ones that I did buy new. And in my Eco Journaling Manifesto, which I'll link to below, I do say that on the whole, I will try and use reclaimed materials that are secondhand and not buy new papers. But occasionally, just like anyone else, I want to read a magazine for pleasure. It's either this or a cookie. So this is slightly better for my waistline. Not that I have one of those anymore. Because I'm a junk journaler, whenever I buy a magazine, I don't just think of it as something that I'm going to read. I think about it as something that I'm going to create art with. So there's several considerations I've got. Firstly, I prefer, although many people in the junk journaling community don't care about this, I prefer matte finishes. So I don't know how much you can tell on this screen, but this has a matte finish to the cover and all the pages inside. Okay, if I see a magazine like that, if I'm looking for a magazine to buy, I suppose one I've just found in a charity shop or a thrift store, then one of my first stipulations is it matte? Because I prefer that look for my journals. The second thing I look for is I think about my sort of journaling fascinations and, my general life fascinations really, and vintage is one of them. I've always loved vintage stuff. In my 20s, I used to dress up in vintage clothing. I used to roller my hair like Marilyn Monroe. I used to do all that kind of stuff. Now, other things that I look for when I'm deciding on a magazine to buy, basically for frivolity, is I look at the images inside. And I think not just about the image as a whole, but I think about, say, for example, if I cut around this tiling, that would be a really cool background for an embellishment. Or, some of the patterns, again, I could use those. I think about things that sort of display the kind of materials that I work with, like laces. Things that are like images that I know would fit into my general, journal. And, this could be a journal cover. I look for pages like these. I could cut all of these out and make little journaling spots or tags or embellishments for pockets. I know that when it comes to pages like these, I'm going to put a napkin or a tea bag, over her and kind of vintage her up a little bit. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 embellishments starts from that. I could fussy cut around this woman. I could, any of these images would work quite well as like a mini postcard or that kind of thing. Even if I added an embellishment, it wouldn't take me long, or a bit of lace. It wouldn't take me long at all. I'm not going to take you through the whole book, but you can see, hopefully, from the pages that I'm turning, the kind of possibilities that a magazine like this offers. And although I bought it new, I am not going to send it to the recycling. I'm going to do something with it. I mean, this is fantastic. That would be such a cool journaling tag. I just love it. Look at this. Just love it. I'm part reading the magazine for ideas, just, around the home or just inspiration. But I'm also at the back of my mind thinking, what could I do with that? I'll have enjoyed reading this, so I've already had the pleasure of it. And then I get a second pleasure, which is to turn it into something. This is one of the beauties of the craft that we do. I will be using, I think, every last bit of this magazine in some way, shape or form. So you might notice this is not matte on the cover, but it does have a slightly more matte finish on the inside. But the reason that I'm showing you this is that, as well as vintage, historical magazines are fantastic for junk journaling. Let me just open a page at random and see what we've got here. So, I mean, you could probably just see from these things that I'm showing up, but these Egyptian elements here, they would give your ephemera just a really different feel. Yeah, you could cut around something like that, something like this. So vivid and interesting and different to what you normally see. And if you wanted to matte it up, I mean, we all know these techniques of putting the tea bag over or putting the napkin over and gluing over it. It just, you know, possibilities are just waiting for us. A lovely map. What, you know, beautiful map. And as I'm doing my junk journaling, I can read a little bit about the spread of Celtic culture. Although this is gloss or glossier, it's got some really striking images in it. And when I look at a magazine like this, so this one, yeah, so I bought this for business purposes. I bought it when I was writing a romance novella about a pirate. So it was all about, you know, sort of the seas and the passages people have made across the seas and civilization and how it's used the oceans and things. So I bought this so I could get a sort of overview of life at sea, you know, throughout the ages, and particularly in the time when my book was set. Gorgeous. So many possibilities with this. I know that maybe we don't always have history magazines at the top of our list in terms of things that we're going to buy, but I needed to buy them anyway for my writing to get an overview of a particular time. I also wrote a novella about a romance novella about a night, a time travel romance novella. So as you can see, I again needed to just buy a little overview. I didn't want to buy books and books because you don't really need it for a short novella. But look how cool this is. And this is matte pages as well. So this is not going to need any matting up. It's matte as it is. So I just imagine putting some of these pages into a junk journal as part of the signature, but also fussy cutting around some of the images. Just gorgeous. So I think that these things can be used to add a different slant to the kind of ephemera that you see in most of the junk journals. So don't discount vintage magazines that are about, like modern magazines that are about vintage style. History magazines, Joan of Arc, yay. These things have wonderful images in them. And I think any of these would make great additions to a signature. So, you know, it depends on the style of your journal, of course it does, but I'm just thinking of ways that we can make our journals look a little bit different and unique. This is a feminist magazine. This is one of the ones that this is back from 2018. I still haven't got to cutting it up. What does that tell you? But this is one of the ones that I bought as a treat for myself one day. And this was before I properly started to junk journal, but you have images like this. It's full of, so illustrations is something else I look for in books and magazines in this case. We've got a quotation on this side. Nature is not a place to visit, it is home. I could cut that out and make a sentiment. And the illustrations. So I do look as well at the design of the magazine, whether or not it's got illustration, whether or not it's got these little sentiments, or, you know, possibly a whole page devoted to a particular sentence or idea. You know, these lovely illustrations that I could do anything with in terms of mixed media. I could use that as a background for a collage and start collaging people and figures and characters into this, and then place it into my art journal or my glue book or my junk journal. I mean, it's great. And some artist has taken a long time to create something that beautiful. Isn't it a shame that it ends up in the recycling bin? I mean, look at that. I only wish I had that type of art talent. So I want to preserve it. I want to put it somewhere and say, I looked at that and thought it was beautiful. This one also happens to have, and again, remember, I hadn't started junk journaling when I bought this magazine, so I wasn't thinking about it in terms of what I would cut up, but it just happens to have all these gorgeous nature shots in it as well at the back. I mean, all of these are going to be super useful. Another sentiment, a William Blake quote. So from an eco-journalist perspective, somebody who is journaling for the most part for their own enjoyment, but also to save some things from landfill, I don't disallow myself from buying new magazines, but I just make a pact with myself that when I do buy them, I'm going to be looking for these particular elements. This is another historical one, so I'm just going to quickly breeze through, but look. Okay, I'm not going to show this one because the video is going to be too long, but you get the picture. I wrote a Viking novella. So I also have, you know, this kind of magazine to get to grips with it. I think I did go so far as to buy a book on the subject as well, because it's so far from our own history that I think I just felt I needed to, you know, have a look. But you get the sense. Really amazing images. Again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but just, you can tell. Okay, there's some really cool illustrations in here. There's some really great text. It would be very easy to turn that into something beautiful. So the last kind of magazine that I'm going to flag, this is a mindfulness creativity magazine. So magazines about well-being are good to look out for if you're looking for a treat, because they usually have really beautiful illustrations. And even just look at this cover. This, if I trim this here and here, I could use this as a sentiment, and I could use this as a pocket. Really beautiful pocket. The colours in it are gorgeous. And then I've got all these words at the top that I could use as sentiments as well. I am really keen for people not to have to re-spend money. So if you've already got something like this in your stash, I don't feel like you should have to go out and buy more stickers. This, for example, is just the front cover, but in miniature. But that would make a really gorgeous sentiment, wouldn't it? So I hope this has been inspirational, and I hope you understand why I've taken the time to flip through these things and kind of focus on what it is that I look for when I'm buying a magazine and why, or what I'm looking for when I'm thinking about cutting up a magazine and why. Because obviously some of these were bought before I started doing junk journaling, and it just so happens that I was drawn to things that really work for the format. But now I actively look for them. Like I said, with my Vintage Home magazine, I can use every single page of all of these magazines. Nothing's going to be wasted, and it's going to make for some really interesting and unique pages in a journal. It's going to help me stand out in terms of my craft, and that's important to me. I like the things that I do to be as unique as they can be. I appreciate we're all using very similar techniques, and for the most part we're using quite similar materials. So anything you can do to just give yours a little bit of a unique edge, I think it really makes a big difference. I would love to hear from you in the comments about anything in particular that you look for when it comes to magazines when you're junk journaling. So if you buy a magazine, is junk journaling at the back of your mind? And if it is, what elements are you thinking particularly about before you take it to the counter and pay for it? So let me know. I'm intrigued, and I just love to be inspired by other people. So give me a shout out in the comments and let me know what you look for. Let me know if this has inspired you. I really hope it has. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.